Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. Read with Rosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. And rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. On today's show, we have a Hawaiian and Samoan sister. She is an aspiring author and a fellow bookstagrammer. Welcome to the show, Kealani. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I am great. I'm great, sis. It's so good to have you on the show. I know every week I say I'm so excited, but I really am, sis. I'm so excited to have you here. So we can chat about books and yeah, share a little bit about your journey with our audience. So before we even get into my questions, could you just give a brief introduction? Like, who is Kealani? Where are you from? Where are your cultural roots? Where are you based? So go ahead.
So I'm Kealani Netane. I'm from Hawaii. I grew up in Hawaii. My dad is from Samoa and my mom is from Hawaii. So my dad grew up in Upolu and then also in Utah. So he went back and forth. And my mom grew up in Hawaii, mostly in Haleiwa. So Haleiwa is pretty famous for their shave ice. I don't know, maybe not, but but that's where she grew up. And then I grew up in Hawaii, and then I'm married. I have a husband, and then we have two kids, and we decided to stay in Hawaii and raise our kids here.
Nice.
And I run the Bookstagram, little Pasifika readers.
Yes. We're going to get to that, sis. We are going to get to that. I read this article, and this has nothing to do with books, but I read an article in the New York Times. I think it might have been end of June, and they were talking, I guess, to some locals
Mhm.
in Hawaii and asking, getting their thoughts on this idea of tourism opening back up,
Mhm.
and people flocking to Hawaii again. I mean, are you seeing that? Because one of the quotes that I saw was, "There's just the sense of entitlement." This was a quote from one of the locals in regards to people just flocking back into onto the island. So, do you see that? Are you seeing a lot of tourists coming back in now with people getting vaccinated and the borders opening up?
Yeah, there's a lot of tourists here, and I think the biggest difference is the kind of tourists that we
Mm.
have now. Because before the pandemic, we had a ton of Japanese tourists. Those were our main tourists, and then wherever else from the world. But right now, there's not really very many Japanese tourists. The tourists are mainly from the continental US. And so there's a huge shift in the cultural differences and the way they treat us here and the way they treat our land. But we've always had a huge problem with tourism in Hawaii, where the government kind of puts tourists and profits ahead of the people on the land here. And so there's always been a back and forth and an issue with that. But I think during the pandemic, there were very few tourists. So we actually got to enjoy parts of the island that we've never been to before. Like I've never been able to walk down Waikiki Strip and it just be completely empty and we can just actually go in the water and go swimming. But if you went today to Waikiki Strip, it's just like you can't even walk anywhere. It's just
Mm.
everyone is right next to each other.
Wow. And then I guess my next question is in terms of the vaccination rollout, how is that going? I mean, with tourists flocking back in, and in terms of locals, like, are you getting access to vaccinations? Is the rollout going okay? Are people going to get are they getting vaccinated or are there protests? I mean, you see this different parts of the world. There are protests against um, the vaccination, and there are many theories out there, conspiracy theories. What's it like where you are? What do you
So
see?
where we're at, the Hawaii government has taken it very seriously. So um, we're not like Samoa where our borders are completely shut down. Our borders are open. We can't close our borders at all because the state government isn't over that. That's a federal government thing. But they do have mandates in. So people who come through into Hawaii, they have to either show that they're vaccinated with a vaccination card, or they have to get tested within 3 days before they arrive, and then they have to show proof of that as they come into Hawaii. And then, as far as people getting vaccinated in Hawaii, there's still that some people really believe in the vaccination and some people are anti vaccination. But for the most part, what I've seen and the people in my family are pretty much pro vaccination. So,
Mm.
um, yeah. So I think the last statistics I saw was something like 60% of Hawaii is vaccinated, which I don't know if that's high or not. Um, and
Okay.
then, but if you broke it down, the really interesting thing is if you look at the map, if you break it down, it's super interesting to see which areas of Hawaii are vaccinated more than other areas. So if you look downtown, they have a very, very high vaccination rate, like 70, 60%. But if you look to where I live and if you go more west where um, there's not as there's not a greater access to healthcare, it's like a 35% vaccination rate. So there's different things going on where people are pushing for other people to get vaccinated, and yeah.
Mm. And
But
so,
that's where how it is where I'm at,
right.
where I am.
Yeah. So, in terms of school,
Mhm.
the school year is beginning. I don't know if it started out your way, but are schools back in session? Were kids online last year? Um, it sounds like there were very strict protocols in place there. So, are schools back in session, or is it still online learning?
Yeah, so schools are back in session in Hawaii. My mom's a fifth grade teacher, and then I have nieces in school. So everyone has to wear a mask in school. I think we're the only place in the United States that has that. I don't know, maybe other places have it, but everyone has to wear a mask in school. And then the students are 3 feet apart, and then some places have partitions. And my mom said that her school, they keep the AC going, but they can keep the doors and the windows open to get a good air ventilation. And then my mom said all of their meetings with adults are virtual.
Mm, that's interesting because, talking about the keeping the windows and the AC,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously now, like in Japan, I mean, it's summer as well. So that's probably how we're going to, because when we had that whole, it sounds like very similar to your mum's school where they had to be this much feet apart. We were wearing masks right throughout the year because we never went back to online learning like we did all last year face to face, like,
Mm.
in person, and kids had to bring in temperature sheets every day, parents signing off. We had to check in our temperatures, come in school, scan on the computer, all that kind of stuff. So there were all these different things in place. But man, in winter, it was so cold in Tokyo, and so we'd have the heat on, but then we have to keep the windows open, and it was just like, man, people wanting to, like people getting all aggro and stuff because it'd be like freezing as, but we have to open the windows. And it was just like, you go close the window because it's cold, and then someone will open it. Like, and so now I'm thinking when we go back to school next week with the kids coming, and it's so hot here right now, I imagine there's going to be a lot of like, let's try
The
and
push
keep the
and
AC
pull.
here. Yeah, the push and pull and fight me. So, but it's really good to hear that your mom's school, they're trying to make it a safer place. Um, I saw you tweet something, maybe I think it was a few days ago, and I responded and said, I think one of my biggest worries as a teacher is the vaccination, like who's
Mhm.
not getting vaccinated, who is getting vaccinated. I mean, we cannot do anything about it. It's not like we can say we're not going to teach this child or because their family don't want. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's just something that's always there. Like that's something that we that's like another worry to add to the other many worries that are kind of out of our control during this
Mhm.
pandemic. Do you know what I mean? So, anyways, I wanted to ask in regards to reading. I know you're a reader, you're a bookworm, you love books, you love reading. Were you, when you were growing up, were there books in your house? Like, did you have access to books? Were you going to the local library? Were you even a reader when you were younger?
I was a huge reader. I was so shy when I was a kid, and I really found a community in books. Um, And so I mean, we had some books in our house, but my mom really focused more on the library. I
Mhm.
think, I don't know, my mom's really cheap, so she doesn't like to buy things. So wherever she can get the free stuff, that's where we go. So we went to the library maybe once a week. And then in the summer, we always did the summer reading programs.
Mhm.
Um, but all the books that I read were always about white kids. I didn't even realize that at the time until I was older. I loved the Boxcar Children, the Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen series. I don't know why I was like all about their series. And then the Sweet Valley High, the Babysitter's Club. Yeah, all of those books were, I just devoured all of them. And there's a million books in the series. So those were all my favorites.
I mean, that resonates with me because I too, growing up, didn't think about representation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in this day and age, we think about representation in books in terms of, you know, who are the characters that our students or our children are seeing in books, right? But I didn't think about that. Like when I was growing up, I just loved to read, and I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to be that character in that book. I wanted to be living in this country. Do you know what I mean? I never thought about, oh, that's a white character, or
Mm-hmm.
that there were barely any, well, no brown characters in the books that I was reading. So, now when we think about it, there's this, and it's important, right? I guess now as adults looking back, it's like, wow, at what point for you did you realize, oh, there's not really anyone that looks like me in these books? Like as an avid reader, what was the point where you got to and you were like, wait a minute, what's going on
I
here?
didn't even realize it until I was in my 20s.
Mm,
When I first read Teresa by Lani Young, that was
yeah,
the first time I had ever seen myself in a book. And that's the first time it clicked.
yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, I was much older when I finally realized it.
yeah. I love reading. I remember, it might have been like, I think in uni where I started reading Albert Wentz books. And then
Hmm.
I think from them I was like, "Oh, wow." Because he was writing about the islands, Samoa and stuff, and I was just like, "Okay, this is cool." People that you can relate to that kind of village setting. But still, it wasn't like, "Oh, there's someone like me in a book." It was just like,
Hmm.
"Wow, there's an author writing about our people. Okay, that's different." Do you know what I mean? But
That's
now as
how
it's
I was too.
yeah.
Because in high school, I took a Pacific. It was the first Pacific literatures class at my high school, and I
Mhm.
took it. And my teacher was super adamant about having Pacific authors. So we had Patricia Grace, Albert Went Young. I mean, all of the famous
Yeah.
authors at that time. But I never saw myself in their books because
Yeah.
their books were very much like literary fiction,
Yeah.
and I didn't. I mean, I enjoyed their books, but I was all about fantasy. Like, give me a book about a Samoan vampire or like
Yeah.
or like a Samoan werewolf, and then I'll see myself. So I think that's why Telesa was such a life changing book for me. Even though I loved the other books, but
Yeah.
that's how I saw myself at that time.
Man, when I think of the Telesa books, like I remember because I'm one of the, like I remember reading it in the series, and I want to see it on screen. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like she opened up, she opened up my thinking to so many. When I read that series, I was like, oh wow, okay, okay. So this is again, this is something different. We haven't seen this before from, a Pacific Island author, and I straight away thought, why can't we have this on the big screen? Why can't
Mhm.
they make a series about this? Because I want to see those people in real life. Like I want to see those storylines on the big screen. Um, and I remember doing this. Was on this Zoom where um, I asked her, "Will you do an audiobook? Because I want to hear the stories." To me, like this day and age that we live in, it's not enough just to read the book. Like I want to see it on the big
I want
screen.
everything.
I want everything like right now. You have no choice. You have to. But yeah, I would love to hear her books
Hmm.
in audio, and I especially love the Scarlet series. Have you
Oh
read
yes,
the Scarlet
I
series? Oh
love
my god,
Scarlet.
sis! I'm like,
The
let me
way
just
I
catch my
laughed
breath.
the whole time.
Let me just catch my breath. Give me a minute. But I would love to hear that. I think the other thing is, like I just want to hear that island humor. I want to
Hmm.
hear it in voice, because we know Islanders, crazy, funny ass sense of humor, but there's some quirky things in the book, and I want to hear that. Anyways, enough about me.
No, I do too. I want to hear the mom yell at them.
And the aunties and
Yeah.
all that crazy stuff. So do you have a favorite childhood book? I mean, you've mentioned some books, but was there the one favorite book that you can think back to and go, that was it for me?
And there were so many.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I was like, she's going to say it's too many to name. Okay, well, I mean, well, what's a popular?
I was really obsessed with the Babysitters Club, but there was like, I was looking for it the other day. It was like the Babysitters Club Junior or something, but it was the middle grade version, or I
Right.
don't know, for younger kids. And in my head, I had this whole idea that like that's what I wanted to do. But then I started babysitting. I was like, this is not what it
Yeah.
takes to be
you know, the Babysitters Club, like when they did that Netflix,
I
the
couldn't even watch it because I was like, it's not going to be the same.
yeah, you know what? Like I was like you, so obsessed with Babysitters Club. Um, it was the friendship thing for me.
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh, I don't wanna babysit," but it was definitely the different friendships and how each of them were connected and how they were so different. But when they did that series, oh my god, when they did that on Netflix, I watched it.
Hmm.
I had to, and now I'm like, "Come on, when's the next one coming out?" Grown ass woman, like, "When's the next one coming out? Hurry up." But I too was watching it going, "Oh, yeah, no," like, "Oh, that character could have been, oh, why did you?" I loved it, but, I was still kinda critiquing it. Um, do you like film adaptations of books while we're on this Netflix? Do you like, um yeah, do you like film adaptations of books?
Like the movies.
Yeah, like, do you like it when they make a book into a movie?
I do most of the time.
Most of the
There
time.
are some times where it's like, oh, I don't, the character you chose doesn't do it for me.
Mm,
But yeah, so most of the time I love it. But I don't know if you've ever read The Vampire Academy. That was like my all time favorite vampire series. But they made that into a movie and I just couldn't watch it. The people that they chose, they just weren't the people that were in my mind. So
right,
yeah, sometimes I do and sometimes I
yeah. There's probably 10,000,000 other people saying the same thing
don't.
as
Yeah.
you. It just wasn't how I imagined that character to be.
And on Twitter, everybody has all their
Well,
opinions about.
right, you know how it is, you know how it is. What's a popular book that you disliked? A book that everyone raved about. It might be recent, it could be a book, from from the past, like a book that everyone raved about, and then you read it and you're like, oh, build ups.
So I read a lot of romance,
Mm.
and I don't know if you've seen this book, but it's called Beach Read. It has like a yellow cover, and there's like two people laying on beach towels, and I thought it was gonna be like super funny book and all about them like with on the beach in the ocean, but then I started reading it and it was so sad, and I was like, I can't read this.
So they
I was
tricked
like,
you. It was
yeah.
that front cover was a trick, right?
So I don't know, but it was just a mood that I'm very much a mood reader. So if
Yeah.
I go into a book with a certain mood, like I need that fulfilled, and if not, then I just move on really quickly. So that was a really popular book last year, maybe.
Mm.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
didn't read it.
was it a book from do you follow Reese Witherspoon's book club? Was it a book from her
I
recommendations?
think it might have been
Yeah,
in
because
her
I'm like, that
recommendation.
sounds like a book that was I mean, I've gotten some great reads from her book recommendations,
Hmm.
but I'm like, that sounds like something from her page.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was on her.
How dare they trick us like that?
But like if it's
Um,
sad, like at least put a sad face so I know. I don't
yeah.
know.
A book that I actually saw advertised on her page, and then many other pages is that I don't know if you've read it. Is it something like Crawford the Crawford
Oh, when the crowd
when the
something sings.
yeah. I tried
I
so hard
tried.
to read it. Oh my god, do I have I tried, but I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah,
Do I
I
need
couldn't
maybe I
either.
need to listen to the
One of my
audio.
friends actually gave me the book because she loved it so much,
Okay.
but I couldn't get into it. And I was like, oh, maybe if I try the audiobook. And then I never tried the audiobook. So,
Yeah, maybe I need to try the audiobook. I don't know. I've tried, and it's been recommended to me by
hmm.
so many people, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. No, I can't. Like, I can't. I've tried. I mean, what makes you recommend a book? Like, what is like you're reading a book? What makes you recommend a book to friends or to colleagues or to Bookstagram family? Yeah,
A book needs to grab me within like the first two pages. I'm one of those people that if I don't like it in the first few pages, I just won't read it.
right,
So if it grabs me and pulls me in, and then I can't put it down. I also have to read a book within like 1 or 2 days,
right.
because after that, if I don't finish it in 2 days, I'm never gonna finish it. So if I read it that quickly and it kept me engaged the whole time, then that's when I recommend the book.
Okay. What is a genre? I know you've said you read a lot of romance. You love fantasy. What's a genre that you don't read ever?
I had to. Well, I don't ever read horror.
Mm,
I um I don't know if this is one is considered horror, but I read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and it was so good. But
mm,
I just could not handle it. Like it was just way too much for me. The whole serial killer thing, like
yeah.
I can't handle that. So I can't read those kinds of books anymore.
While we're on this, let's talk about pieces of me. Let's reset. Okay, so while we're on this topic of books that you genres that you would never read, I think this is the a great opportunity to bring up this book, Pieces of Me,
Mm,
um, by someone writer. Is it Poor Ramon or Poor Ramona? Am I just making it up?
I think that's her name, Ramona.
Yeah,
Yeah, her last
yeah.
name.
So Kealani discovered this book, and I saw her tweet about it, and I was like, "What?" So then I went and got it, but didn't read it till like a few weeks later. I think finally I had time, and I was like, "Yo, I need to read right now." Let's talk about Pieces of Me. I've been trying to write this review like for like a whole week because I didn't know how to kind of like talk about it without giving stuff away. But let's talk about Pieces of Me.
Yeah, I don't remember how I found it. I think because on my Kindle they just like recommend books to you. And because I read all the Samoan books already, I
Yeah.
think they just were like,
Yeah.
here's one you didn't read.
Right.
So then, sorry, my throat. But yeah, I started reading this book. It was really good, and then it was too much for me.
Yeah.
Even though I am a romance reader, I don't ever read the steamy bits. I just
Right.
scroll through. But man, this book had a lot. I was like,
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that because Kealani reads this book and then she's like, oh, she couldn't finish it. I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna start reading it. And then yeah, I mean, I too, I read books. I've read books like this, but it was just so. I mean, what else do you call steam? Like, it was like, I don't know, was it graphic? It was just, it was just, wow.
It was more like the decision making. I was like, are you
Yeah.
what? Like, are
Like,
you
I was,
more like 18? I don't know.
right, and I was mad. I was like getting so angry at that character that we will not name because we're not giving it away. But this particular character just basically, man, they couldn't keep it in their pants. And then, like, I just like I said to Kealani, I'm gonna read. Like, I really just soldiered on and just tried not to think too much about that because it was almost like a distraction, and I felt like I think I told you I thought it was overcool. I thought that it didn't need to have so much of that steamy thing
Mhm.
going on because after the first time and the second time, I was like, okay, this guy's an egg. We get it. We get it, right? He's an egg. But then as I continued reading, man, I cried. That's the moral of this whole story is that I cried. And then I messaged Kealani and I was like, oh my gosh, I cried. That's what happened. I mean, you know what it was? Like I'm such a sucker for like it's when I read books that and I'm sure for you as well, anything to do with culture,
Mhm.
and finding yourself and that kind of like to do with our culture and there was just a lot of stuff there, like a lot of things that resonated and I just, I'm one of those so emotional I was like emotional, get caught up in the book, and I was so invested in what's going on in these fictional characters' lives, and um, but I just thank you for recommending the book. Like aside from that, and then I think we talked after about what did I say again? She was brave. I thought this author was
Mm.
so like I have to commend her.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought
Yeah.
yeah,
Even even though I didn't particularly enjoy the steamy bits, I know that other people will, and
yeah,
that other people would like they're looking for books like that that
mm,
also focus a lot on the family relationship, and that's
right,
what I loved about her writing was that the sibling relationship
mm,
um, just mirrored what I felt like what a sibling relationship actually
right,
looks like in our culture. Maybe
yeah,
not in everyone's families, but like at least in my family and my husband's family, like that
right.
sibling relationship was so strong in that book. And then the
Mm.
cultural aspects that she brought up, yeah, I just really enjoyed that part of the book.
And I think also like she really like pushed the boundaries, right?
Mhm.
And I thought I didn't know that anyone I mean, I know Albert Went wrote, Leaves of the Banyan Tree and
Mhm.
what's the other is it Mango the Mango Kisses? Like if you've read those books of Albert Went, then they're quite in your
Mhm.
face, steamy, like real kind of like roses. Um things that dominant culture authors write about all the time. But it's always a shock when it's like, oh, it's one of our people writing it. So it actually made me think about that because I was just like, okay, hold up, hold up. She's so brave, um, really pushing the boundaries. But like you said, in connection to the relationships and when you get to what the actual like the story is about, and there's all these like layers. There's like a multitude of layers to the story and it kind of all makes sense. And I feel like maybe that's why she pushed that so much, is to really get to the core of it. And as with, you know we know in our culture there are many issues and many taboo subjects that are really pushed under swept under the carpet, right? And she really touches upon a lot of these things. So I think that's why I cried. I mean, that's I was just like, so I must commend her for that, even though we were both shocked at the extent of steaminess. But I thought, you know what, Albert Went did it. Why
Yeah,
can't
she
she
is a
do it?
gal too.
Yeah, and
Same.
yes, 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 absolutely. I was like, yes, thanks for bringing that up. Yes, I was like, man, good, good on you. And I read a lot of reviews, and people loved it, loved her book.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think anyone focused on the steamy things. Probably just us two, because I didn't read any review that said anything about that. I was like, oh, it's just
That's
me and
why I wasn't
Kealani.
expecting it. It was like
I was just like, Moses, what's going on here? But yeah, hats off to Pua. Yeah, well done. Um, so, um, what has been on your to be read list for the longest time?
oh, so many books. I really want to read Cemetery Boys and Ace of Spades. I don't know if you've seen those books, but
No.
they've been going around. It's on a hold at my library, but my library is taking too long. It still says it's on order, so it won't be here for a little bit. Um, and then I've just gotten into middle grade books.
Mm.
They're kind of really fun. I never thought I would be into middle grade books as an adult. So if you have any recommendations for middle grade books,
Yeah, I love reading middle grade books, because I teach, middle school, and I'm always looking for books. I follow Project Lit Community. I follow Penguin Classroom, and I always repost their stuff on my stories. It's more of a reminder to me that those are the books, those are the things that I need to look up for my own classes. But yeah, I see that you're getting into middle grade books, and I'm like, okay, cool, okay, we're cool like that. Do you have a Goodreads book challenge? I mean, don't even get me started on my bots Goodreads book challenge, and I'm not even a third of the way through. And my friends, they're like, "Are you all good? Are you sure you're gonna make that?" I'm like, plenty of time, plenty of time. What's your goal, sis? Have you already passed your goal? Reached your goal?
I know I'm gonna reach it. So my goal is 70, and I've already read 50 books this year.
Ah,
So I don't count. Of course, I don't count the picture books. I only
right,
count the adult or the YA books.
right.
And if a middle grade book is long enough, then I'll count that book.
Yeah.
But I don't even keep it on Goodreads because I'm thinking like I don't want everybody to know what I'm reading.
Well,
So I keep
my
it on my notes app.
it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but people add me. I didn't even know who they are on Goodreads, and
Yeah.
I think I have 5 friends, and one of them is Katrina, Polynesian reader. Like I don't have like I just I, like you. I'm like, do I really want them to see what I read? I mean, not that I'm reading like, I mean,
I know it's not bad, but
it's just, but it's so funny because yeah, that's kind of why at first I was like, oh, my students, because when I started Goodreads, I actually used my school email account because I'm so stupid. Like, I think 2 years ago when I first started it, and then I started getting requests from my students, and I was just like, I was like, I mean, I love my students. I was like, I don't want them to see what I'm reading. I mean, not that I was reading anything silly, but I was like, decline, decline. And then I realized, I should change the email. So I changed the email. And now I'm not getting any requests. Thank
I
goodness.
mean, good your students are good reads, but
I mean, they love to read. I'm always, we love talking about books, but I was like, I don't know if they should be following me on Goodreads. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad that you're nearly, I feel like I'm proud of you. You're nearly at your goal. I'm nowhere near. Like, seriously, what was I thinking? Yeah. What do you call it? So, is there a living author that you would like to meet right now?
I really, really want to meet CNE AM. I'm a little bit obsessed with her.
She oh my god, yeah, carry on, sis, carry on.
I mean, we've had this conversation
Yeah.
before, but oh my gosh, her books are, I don't know. Anyways, I feel like I'm just gonna start gushing about her books. But so Scar of the Bamboo Leaf, and then what's the other one again? The
Um,
angel one. Oh wait,
it's
sorry, that's a
it's
spoiler.
it's um it's right
Anyways, but both of
it's
her
right
books
on the
were
tip of
just
my brain right now, but yeah,
so
she's amazing.
amazing. Just an amazing writer. I
I
love the
know.
way she integrated the culture, and then her books just like really just pull at your heartstrings. And I just completely cried
Did you
in
cry?
both books.
I cried too. Like do you know I have read like Scar the Bamboo. I've read that book. I didn't even know how many times I've read it. Many times, and every time I just cry because it's just oh my sis. I've recommended that book to so many people. I would say it's like my favorite book by a Pasifika author.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that one time I asked her, are you writing? Are you, because she's a teacher. Shout out to Sieni. And I don't know if she has time, if she's going to be, I really hope that we can meet
I
her one
just
day.
need. I know. I want. I don't know. I don't even know what I would ask her. I feel like I would just
Yeah.
like, I don't know, be so awkward because I would be fumbling at my mouth, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I would be definitely be starstruck.
Yeah. That book is like, I want to ask her, um, like, are there parts of her in that book? Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
In that story, or maybe not her. Are there parts of her, maybe her husband, or people that they know? Like, that's what I want to know. But yeah,
And I really want a sequel.
I know. Oh my goodness! Like, honestly, I hope she's writing. Although as a teacher, I don't know how she would fit that in. But
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, let's just keep cheering her on and yeah. That's such a good
I
book.
think I saw one time on her Facebook page. She doesn't really post on her Facebook page, but that she had another book, and I was so excited. But then I looked at the date, and it was like 3 years ago. I was like, oh.
Yeah. So yeah. Fingers crossed, fingers and toes crossed that yeah, she's awesome. I would definitely love to read another book from her and meet her as well. Good choice, sis. Okay. Let's talk about Pacifica Readathon Challenge. Hashtag Pacifica Readathon Challenge, which was earlier this year in May. It was put together, shout out to
This
Myra. No,
Islander, yeah, Samara.
I was like, did I just make up her name? No, yeah. This Islander reads. She amazing. She is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
and she got together a bunch of us, and we did this Pacifica Readathon challenge hashtag. Did you know that there were that many of us on Instagram?
No, I had no idea. So maybe like at the end of last year or something, I or whenever Katrina made her Polynesian Reader YouTube channel, that's
Right.
when I found her on YouTube, and then I went to her Instagram, and then I think I started following her, then I started following you, and then I started following Mara, and then I also started following Stella. So you were the only four Pasifika bookstagrammers that I even knew of for
Yeah.
months. So
Yeah.
once Mara put together the whole challenge, it was just so fun to meet everybody else in the book community who
Mm.
also read just as much as we do.
Right. I know. I was excited too. I didn't even know. Like I was so shocked that there were that many of us. Um, and like I think like both of us looking for others. There were so
Mm-hmm.
many of us for the longest time just hashtagging Pacifica or poly readers or putting those hashtags together on our posts, but not knowing that there were others out there. So that was so cool. Do you think that we have a responsibility to be promoting and sharing Pacifica authors and books? Do you think that we have a responsibility to do that?
I feel the responsibility, and that's why I started sharing books in the first place, just because our books can be so hard to find. And then, I mean, if you put in Google, you won't even get all the books that are available. And so I just wanted to be a resource for that. And then also during that month of May, I felt, I don't know why, I needed to stop, but I felt a responsibility to go on everybody's Instagrams that were saying AAPI books, but no PI books. And then I started commenting and calling them out. I was like, who do I think I am? Like, I need to stop. Somebody take away my phone, because I was like DMing all these people, like,
Right.
and some most didn't respond to me, but I was like, I don't know. I just felt that responsibility to do that.
I feel you, sis. It's so funny that you mentioned that because I was going to say next question. Let's talk about that hashtag AAPI. I was doing the same thing, like for example, I follow Libra FM, which they I guess Libra FM is like it's a collective kind of thing, and then they promote different like bookstores, right? So they always
Mhm.
post audiobooks. So then AAPI Heritage Month. Um, sorry for those who don't know, Asian American Pacific
Mhm.
Island, right? So it's and they did the AAPI Heritage Month, and these these bookshops and these like book pages were promoting AAPI hashtag, but they weren't even putting any Pacific Island authors. So they were like, it was just a whole month. Kelani, I was doing exactly what you were doing, sis. I was like, I saw Libra FM, they posted something, and I went on there. I unfollowed Audible because I was so ingle with them. No jokes, sis. I was like, that's enough. I've had it because they would be posting AAPI, and then I would go on there. Usually, I'm always posting on Audible. They'll respond, but when I started posting, here are some. Please follow this hashtag. There is a collective of Pacific Island bookstagrammers, um, and they can show you that there are Pacific Island authors. They just ignored me, wouldn't even like my comments. Not that I care, but I was doing exactly what you're doing. I was hitting up like Libra FM, Audible, all these big pages, big companies, and saying follow our hashtag. You're promoting AAPI, but you don't actually have any Pacific Island, you know, authors on your lists. And it got to the point where I was just kind of like really annoyed because what I was finding was that they were saying they were posting Filipino authors. No disrespect to
Yeah.
but that's what they were considering Pacific Islander. And so I was just getting annoyed because I felt like they had people that were given that job to post on the platforms, and they were probably getting paid money and they weren't doing their job. One job,
You had one job.
one job is like, and how difficult is it to look, to Google and, Lani went, Lani Young, she, I think a few years ago, this is how I found out about all these uh, Polynesian authors, Australasia, including Australasia, Pacifica authors, is she put together these lists of
Yes,
authors, and
that's how
that's
I
how,
found all of them.
and so that's how I a few years ago I came across Sieni. I came
Mhm.
across all these other authors. It was through that, and then that's how I was posting on Bookstagram for, on my page was, and I was so grateful that Lani went did that because I had read a lot of books on there, but then there were a lot of unknown authors that need their flowers, man. They got to be given their
Mhm.
flowers. So yeah, I feel you, sis. I did the same thing. um, so let's talk about your page. So for our audience, for our listeners, Kealani, she has an Instagram page, a Bookstagram page at Little Pacifica Reads, Little Pacifica Reads. What prompted you to start the Bookstagram account? I mean, you've already kind of alluded to it. Um, yeah, I mean, when like before you did the Bookstagram account, before you discovered Katrina's BookTube, were you posting about books like on another platform, or like what brought you to Instagram? Was it just purely because you saw Polynesian Reader, you saw Katrina's post, or
I had always been following children's bookstagrammers. And so one of my favorites is, I don't even know how to say her handle, but it's like Here We E-Read or something like that. But she posts a lot of Black authors and books celebrating Black children. And so
mm,
I followed her for a really long time, and I really enjoyed her content. And then I followed other people. Sorry, my throat is like,
it's
but
okay.
anyway, so, and then, yeah, sorry, let me back up a few years. So I used to be a teacher, and when I was a teacher, I was constantly looking for books for our students. So the school that I was teaching at, we mainly had Samoans, Tongans, Hawaiians, and Marshallese students. And so I was always looking for books that represented them, and they're so hard to find. But every time I was away from Hawaii at that time, but every time I came home to Hawaii, I would go to the thrift store, and I would just find every single book I could find for like $1 each, and then I would bring them back with me to the school that I was at, and then the kids would be so excited to see books with people who look like them, and so ever since then I had always been on the lookout. And so when I started having my own kids, I did the same thing. I went back to the thrift stores and got every single book I could find. And then as my kids got older, my daughter wanted more books. So then I started looking for other authors online and getting their books shipped to me. Um, and then I was like thinking about how hard it is for parents to find these books for their children. And so that's when I started to have the idea, but it wasn't until I saw Polynesian Reader that I was like, oh, I could do this. I could just take pictures of books and just post them. I really didn't think that anyone would follow me. I was like, oh, maybe like my family or something. Um, but as I met more and more people were searching for the same types of books that I was searching for. And so it kind of morphed into this whole thing.
So I guess that is perfect lead on to the next part of this interview. You are an aspiring author, a writer. Um, I read this tweet that you wrote, not recently, but you said, "My writing process: number one, writing during the day while my kids destroy the house. Number two, writing at night, but I keep falling asleep." So my question is, how many hours a day are you trying to dedicate to writing?
It varies. Every single day is a new adventure. um, but some days I have to just go with whatever comes to my mind. So even if it's not like the best time to start writing and pull out the computer, I just pull out my phone and I just start writing on my phone. Sometimes I'll be driving and like this idea pops into my mind and I have to get it out. So I just pull over on the side of the road and I just want to write it down really fast.
Got to be
Or
safe. Well done.
yeah,
Well done.
or sometimes I'm like washing the dishes and an idea pops into my mind. So I just hurry up and I grab my phone and I write it down. So I'm not a writer where I like set a time limit. I don't think I can do that with my kids because my kids,
Mm.
they're always crawling all over me. Um, yeah, so sometimes I set, so most of the time it's just randomly throughout the day that I'm writing. There are some days where I just feel like I have a lot to write down. So then in the nighttime after my kids go to sleep, then I start writing and writing and writing. But
Mm.
then like I'm also falling asleep.
You're like, uh,
And then when I wake up in the morning and I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was terrible.
when when did you decide that you wanted to get into writing? Like, what was it that kind of like inspired you to initially get into writing? Or have you, or, I mean, or are you someone that's always been journaling and writing as
No.
you were growing up?
I'm not a journaler. Is that a word? I don't know. But I just started writing last year during the pandemic. I was pregnant at the time, and my daughter, she had started taking these like 3 hour naps during the day, and then she would go to sleep at like 8 o'clock. So then I would have these huge amounts of time, and I had watched every single Netflix show that I wanted to watch, and then my grandma's voice kept playing in my head that I need to nurture my talent. So my this is random side story, but my grandma, she's always been a guitar player, and as she got older, she got arthritis. She couldn't play the guitar. So at like 80 years old, she decided to learn how to play the harmonica because
Wow.
she needed to nurture her talent. So then she taught herself how to play the harmonica. So while I was sitting there watching all my Netflix shows, I just I felt my grandma scolding me, like hitting me in the back of my head, like, "What are you doing here?" Like, so it was a call from my grandma that I needed to start doing something more productive, and so I started writing, and it kind of just morphed from there. And I ended up finding a whole community of people who write. So we switch our manuscripts back and forth, and we're able to critique each other and get better at it. So yeah.
That's so cool. Have you ever gone on a literary pilgrimage or thought about it? Where you perhaps visit, like, well, you can't visit Australia, but a favorite author's like their hometown or a setting where a story has taken place. Like, have you ever thought about doing something like that, or have you
I think
done that?
about it all the time, but it never happened.
And so if I mean, where would you want to, like, if you think about a book, like any particular book, what, where would you want to go? Like, which book, where is the setting? If there was no pandemic, if there was nothing stopping you from being able to travel, where would you visit?
This is random, but there was one time in my life where I was really into books that were set in Ireland. And so I had this whole fantasy about going to Ireland and having like a true Irish experience or whatever. And so I would love to do that. So that's one hand of the I don't know, it just seems so I know their history is
Yeah,
very, very tough. Um, but the castles are just so amazing, and the ruins that are there.
right.
I would love to be able to walk that area. And then on the other hand, I'd also just really love to have a day where I can just sit in my car and stare at the ocean. I'm not trying to go on the beach. It's like it's way too hot outside, and
Right.
I don't like the sun. But I just want to sit at the ocean and just be like have a creative moment that way. So that's two very different perspectives. But
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Have you considered writing under a pseudonym, or are you happy just to kind of put your name out there?
I've thought about writing under a pseudonym, but then it almost makes I know it's a very valid option for some people, but I feel like I need to put my name out there because I know that there's kids who need to see names that look like theirs. And so that was another reason why not another reason, but one of the main reasons why I keep writing is because I keep thinking about those kids who live in the middle of nowhere and they go to the library and there's no books that look like them. But I would love for my books to be able to be in those random places where Samoan kids live, like in the middle of Kansas or Missouri, I don't know. And they go to the library and they see an author's name that is similar to their name or a picture that looks like them.
Great answer. Um, when you think about your writing, are you trying to be original, or is it more about writing for what you think readers might want to read?
It really just depends on what comes in my mind.
Mm,
It's hard because when you're writing, you can't really write for anybody else. You
Mm,
kind of have to just go with what you're thinking and feeling in that moment, and then um, and then go from there. Does
mm.
that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So then what does literary success look like to you?
I mean, I have huge dreams, but I don't know if they're possible.
What are some of your dreams then? Like, what do you like if you think of like if you could go into the future, you're, you know, award-winning author, well-known writer, what would that success look like?
So for me, there's a few authors that I really look up to their entire career, and one is a Native American author, Cynthia Smith. She's written, she just came out with a few books, Hearts Unbroken and The Never See Sisters or something like that. It's a retelling of Peter Pan from a Native American point of view. And so for her, she's been writing for years and years, maybe like 20, 30 years. And she was one of the first Native American authors writing in the children's literature section. And now she has her own imprint at HarperCollins Publishing Company. And
Wow.
so her imprint focuses on um, publishing the Indigenous people of the US and Canada. And so I don't know if this will ever happen. It probably won't. But my big dream, and not even, I don't even have to do this, but my big dream is to have an imprint at a large company that would be able to distribute books to the world specifically for Pacific Islanders. Um, and in my head, that imprint would equally have authors from Melanesia, Micronesia, Polynesia, even our other Oceania people in Australia, or whoever else is connected to us in our ocean. So that's my dream. It probably won't happen, and if it
Don't say
happens,
that.
it probably won't be me. But yeah.
Okay, nice. Don't say that. Anything is possible. Have you um do you want to write books you know, in your languages and perhaps Hawaiian language or in Samoan? Is that something that you think you could do or would want to do in the
It's
future?
something that terrifies me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would ever be qualified to do something like that, because my knowledge of both languages, I feel like they're so small. Um, but I would love to do something similar to what Dalia Malaiulu is doing,
Mm,
where you code
yes.
switch. And so then you pick words from the languages that you want your readers to know and understand by the end of the book. And you use those words throughout the book so that by the end, they know exactly what those words mean. So I would do something like that, but I don't know if I would ever have the mastery of the language to be able to write a full book in either language.
Mm. Yeah, I shout out to Dahlia, man. I love you. We're both big fans. We're just super fans of Dahlia. Malaiulu, shout out to Dahlia and just the work that she's doing. I feel like they need to have a symposium or something, something where it just brings together aspiring writers and a panel
Mm-hmm.
of established Pasifika writers. Um, you know?
Yes, I really want that. That's another dream too. Not
Mm,
for me to be on the panel, but for me to be able to attend a place where all of these established authors are, and then they can just help us along with the wisdom. Wouldn't you just want to hear all of their stories?
yeah, like yeah, I mean, you know, I think that there are a lot of Pacific Islanders out there doing the hard work and
Mm-hmm.
just writing. You know, they're independently trying to get their work out there. They just think they just they don't get like the people, they don't get the spotlight. Do you know what I mean? I know that
Mhm.
um there are other people putting out like language books, in Te Reo and Kokala Māori, in Tongan. They're just not they don't get that full exposure, right? So
Mhm.
like I wish there was a database or something established so that anyone, even up and coming and aspiring writers who are planning to put out work, I wish there was a database that we could have and have access to, and so that way we can then promote. Like every
Mhm.
time I see someone, I'll get people who hit me up and be like, have you heard of this person? And then I go and check out what they're doing, and I just like to promote that. Do you know what I mean? So if there was some kind of database, I don't know who would put it together, but just someone, I just wish that there was something like that, so then we could promote the different types of authors, and different genres of work that are out there. Because I know there are people out there, but you just
Mhm.
this other time someone, I think it was like this, one of my friends shared, I think it's a businesswoman, and she had, I guess, put out a kind of like a memoir, based on her experience. And I thought I couldn't get access to the book. They don't ship here. It was really difficult to kind of get a hold of that book, and I'm still trying to find how can I get a copy or something online that I can read. So I know that there are people out there doing it, like yourself, but we just need to have it somewhere stored somewhere
I
so people can
know.
access and put that information out there. Because writing isn't. It's. I mean, I'm not a writer. I don't know, but I imagine it's not an easy thing to do. It's a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears, I'm sure. So, um, I'm I love I love that you shared your dreams, and never say never, never say never. So which age group are you actually? I know you're getting into middle grade. I know that you promote a lot of the picture books. Is that kind of the audience that you are writing for? Or are you looking at like middle middle school? What's your like target audience? Do
So
you have
I've
a target
written
audience?
so far I've written mainly picture books, and so picture books. So in the US publishing world, it's uh yeah, there's specific ages that belong to each group. So picture books are ages 4 through 8, and then middle grade is ages 8 through 12, and then young adult is 12 to 18. So I've been focusing on picture books, and I'm actually so I actually got a literary agent, and she's based in New York, and we actually have a book right now that she sent out to publishers. So we're just waiting to hear back from publishers if they want to take on the book or not. It's a really lengthy process. So even if a publisher offers to sign me as an author on my book, it'll be about 2 to 3 years before my book is ever out on the shelves. It's really long. And
Wow.
so I've been focusing mainly on picture books, but I do have projects that I'm working on in middle grade and then also in young adult. But those just take a long time to write because they're way more words than a picture book is.
Wow,
So
2 to 3 years. I mean, does that make you wanna go independent and, like, maybe put it out yourself? I don't know if that sounds right. Like, do you know what I mean? Because I know some
yeah.
people who don't have an agent, just they write and then they get, like, an illustrator if that's something they need, and then um do you know what I mean? There's, like,
Hmm.
it's not as lengthy a process as going through all those big companies. I mean, does that make you want to be like, okay, I'm just going to do it my way and kind of like draw on people that I can connect with who can do this and that and then piece it together? Or are you feeling a bit more comfortable to just kind of like go through that process? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when you first start writing, you have to make a decision if you want to go through self-publishing or if you want to go through traditional publishing. And so most um, Pasifika authors outside of New Zealand um, have gone through self-publishing,
Mm.
which is really amazing that they do that because it's so much work. It's like ridiculous how much work it takes to be self-published. And then, I mean, it's also a lot of work to be traditionally published. But self-publishing is a shorter time frame, but you do have to put up the money for
Right.
all of the things, and it's expensive. So getting an illustrator is thousands of dollars, and then the printing your book and then distributing your book. So, and then as the self-publisher, you also have to be marketing your book,
Right.
and then you have to be doing all of the back end things. And so when I saw how much work, so
You were
you have
like,
to ask
broke.
yourself, like, you have to ask yourself if you're willing to be a business person,
Yeah.
because essentially you're an entrepreneur and you created
Right.
your own publishing company, your own business
Right.
as a self-publisher. And I was like, I don't know if I can handle all of that going on in my
Like,
brain.
now that you've explained it and broken it down, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh no, I totally get why you. Yeah, what's 2 years? Really, time
Yeah.
flies, right? So good on you,
So
sis.
one of the self publishers that I really admire is Tony Laulu. He's the author
Oh
of
yes, yes,
Wa'u Le
yes.
Samoa
Yeah,
and the holiday one.
yeah.
Because he does everything, because he also, not only does he do all of the stuff that I mentioned, but he also reaches out to the charity people,
Yeah,
like the who buy his books and then
right.
donate it to schools.
Mm.
And man, he does a lot of work. So I always look at things like that, and I just think like I'm just in awe of the things that people do as self-published authors. So then I had to do, but then if you go the traditional route, you
Mm.
have to get about maybe like 20 to 30 people to believe in you. And so,
To believe in you.
yeah. And these are all people who aren't someone who aren't Hawaiian,
Yeah.
because if you look at the publishing world in the US, there's nobody there. There's only one person that I know of who is Maori,
Mm.
and he is in the traditional publishing world, and he publishes in Australia. But he does adult romance, and I don't write adult romance, so I I couldn't go that route. So yeah, when you're writing your books, you really have to write a book that showcases your culture in a universal way.
Mm.
And so, not necessarily that you're writing for the white gays or white people. You can definitely write for your people and for your community, but you have to keep in mind, if you want to be a traditional writer, that you have to get people to buy into your book. And these are people who get maybe like uh, 300, 400 books a month of people
Mm.
saying, please publish my book. So you have to be one of those people.
Man, yeah, shout out to Tony. Check him out on IG at Chief Book Series. Check out what the brother's doing on there. Um, man, sis, there are no words.
It's the work.
I was just like I didn't know what else to say now. So I guess it's just we get to this point of the show where you share your book recommendations. Do you have any book recommendations? Is there something you're itching for people to like read, to check out? What do you have for us?
So I did bring a couple with me. Probably my favorite ever Hawaiian book is this one, Kealani. And if you open it, it's a vocabulary book, but it's a picture vocabulary book. Like I needed this in my life when I was trying to learn Hawaiian. But
Mm,
it yeah, you don't have to just see words on a page and the English translation. You can actually learn the words in where you would actually use it. Yeah. And then what else did I bring? Yeah, if you haven't read Telesa, I feel like everybody should. This should be on everybody's TBR if you haven't read Telesa before. And then, as always, I always recommend Scar of the Bamboo Leaf. I
yes.
know we already talked about that by
I know.
CNAM, but I always recommend that book.
Thank you, sis. Man, yeah, definitely. Great recommendations there. Um, we'll make sure we link so that people can get at it. I as you know, we like to get guests to drop some words of wisdom, words of encouragement for our audience. I just want to say, first of all, though, before I hand it over to you, it's such an honor to have you here. Like, honestly, it's just like I love meeting the Bookstagram family. Like, I interviewed Sela, as you know, and a few days ago, I interviewed Katrina. We laughed probably as much as we laughed today, which was great. So, it's yeah. Thank you so much for coming through. I know you're a busy mom. I know you've got a lot of things going on, but I really appreciate you not just coming on the show, but you're always supporting the podcast. Hyping me up with my books and book recommendations and stuff like always offering encouragement, not just with with the podcast, but just with books in general and through Bookstagram. So, I really appreciate that. I'm so glad that we connected through the Bookstagram, Pasifika Bookstagram Collective. Um, you've dropped so many gems today. I'm sitting here thinking, what's going to be the episode title? There were so many things,
I
so
have no
many things.
idea.
So yeah, so blessings, sis. Thank you so much, and I will hand it over to you, just to finish up the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Rosa. I feel like we were already friends before we even seen each other. So, and I always appreciate the things that you share. I feel like I'm just a huge fan of yours because everything you post on Bookstagram or everything you post on YouTube, I'm always like, oh, I gotta see what she's doing. Um, so anyway, so just to finish this off, I just really want to encourage our writers, our creators, just keep doing what you're doing and dream big and just put yourself out there. The worst thing people can say is no. I mean, people can probably say worse things than no, but just brush it off and just keep going forward, because there are people here like us who are dying to see more of our books out there, especially our books from our islands who aren't who don't get as much of attention. So like islands like Vanuatu or Palau or Yap or Rai, I'd love to see more books from these island nations because they have so many stories to tell. Our legends, just if you ever listen to the oral storytelling, they're so beautiful. Um, and whether your creative work is in writing or in art or in speaking to each other like this, just I just want to encourage people to keep doing what you're doing because we're all of us who consume these things. We're ready for whenever anyone drops anything. So thank you so much for having me, Rosa.